Since I'm a politician, before I conclude, I think I have a duty and also there's some expectation for me to tell a few things about the current situation also in the country, if you may pardon me, because the situation today in the country is affecting all of you. Some of you may have been in the diesel queues or petrol queues in the morning. Some of you must be wondering whether you'll be able to find gas for your home requirements in the evening. And all of you must be wondering about the increasing cost of living. So definitely there's no denial that we are going through a tough time. There's no excuse when you're in a difficult situation. It is the responsibility of the existing government to find solution. There's no point blaming anybody else. So the blame game is going on. But I thought since most of you are educated people, professionals, business people, I'll explain you a little bit about this situation, how this situation arose. Because when we know that, we can all in our little way contribute to change it in future, at least not to allow that happen again. I think until 2009 there were so many governments in this country. There's no point talking about the governments before, but the war changed a lot of things in our country. Actually the recent past begins after 2009. Since then we have had 3 governments. So most of the problems that we are facing today, I think these 3 governments must take responsibility, including the current government. The biggest problem that we have today is the foreign currency issue, as you all know. So how did this foreign currency issue started? In 2009, Sri Lanka's foreign currency reserve has deteriorated to a very low level of just $1 billion US. But since then, until 2014, this foreign currency reserves grew by about 7 billion, and in 2014, it had reached 8.3 billion US dollars. 2014. Then the government changed, the other government came. Actually, they were complaining a lot about the huge debt that were accumulated by the previous government, which existed before 2014, because there are a lot of debt to be settled. There was severe burden on the government that came to power. That is, again, something that you have to accept. But this government also did the same mistake the previous government did. They also borrowed. They borrowed more than the previous government. When the previous government had borrowed 5,200 billion rupees over a 9-year period, the other government borrowed 5,600 billion rupees over a 5-year period. So they also can't escape responsibility. This debt burden that we are facing today, both governments, one way or the other, contributed. The problem was that the previous government couldn't build the reserves. Even though from 2009 until 2014, reserves went up by 7 billion US dollars. From 2015 up to 2019, reserves didn't go up. In fact, it went down. If we had continued the same trend, it should have been at least, simple mathematics, it should have been at US dollar 14 billion. And then with the Hambantota sale, another 1 billion came. That was never used to repay the debt. So that also should have got added. At least 15 billion US dollars should have been there as reserve. But when the current government came to power, we had only 7.6 billion in the kitty. So that's the truth. It's not blaming, but that's the truth. Then what happens? Normally every year we have a trade gap of about 10 billion US dollars in this country. Usually when you have exports of about 10 billion, imports of about 20 billion, 10 billion gap is there. You usually bridge that gap using your revenue from tourism, which is about 3 billion, and about 7 billion from foreign remittances. So you always manage to bridge this gap. Then because there are debts to settle, you continue to borrow. That is how the governments continue. That's not the way it should continue, but that's how the governments continue. But when the current government came to power, that 10 billion which comes from tourism and foreign reserves got affected. Tourism completely disappeared with Corona for 2 years. Zero income. Foreign remittances also started coming down. First, because a lot of people came back due to Corona problem, particularly from Korea. More than 100,000, 150,000 came back. They started going down. And the situation got worsened when our government, this is kind of, I'm blaming our government, when we decided to keep our rupee fixed. When there was pressure on the rupee, when they didn't float, the other systems like Undial and those things came into picture, and the foreign remittances started dropping. So on one side we got affected by Corona, on the other side there was a delay on our own part, and we didn't have that money to bridge that gap. Then we had to settle 11 billion US dollars worth of debts over the last 2 years. So when we don't have money even to bridge that gap, from where do we settle these loans? You have to use your reserves. You have 7.6 billion reserves, you have 11 billion debts to settle. Obviously you end up having no reserves, or rather very marginal amount of reserves. That's the situation we are facing today. That is why this dollar crisis. So whoever is to blame is a different story. We have a genuine problem today. Perhaps we should have gone to IMF much earlier. Not because IMF can give you money fast, but at least that should have given some credibility to us to go and renegotiate our loans, etc. I'm glad that even now, better late than never, we have taken those two decisions, which I internally always advocated, floating the rupee and going to IMF. And I hope by end of this year, this situation will reverse, because what I hear from central bank and the finance department is that they think we have to settle about another $7 billion this year. They believe that it can be brought down to about 2 billion by negotiating with our debtors. If we do so, with the tourism coming back, foreign remittances coming back, exports growing at about 28% last year, IT industry doing well, I think we will bounce back by end of this year. But then it's not the end of the end, because this problem will persist even the coming years. So we have to now go and do what we didn't do for the last 10-20 years. That is rapidly growing our exports, rapidly contributing to areas we can bring foreign currency. So now government has no escape, no point blaming anybody else. We have to work hard and take these exports levels up and do everything possible to increase this foreign currency inflow to the country. So I trust that we will be able to do that. And if you do so, I think in 2-3 years time, the situation will be different. So I thought I must give you some hope in this desperate situation. So once again, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for inviting me to meet you lovely people and participate at this very important event. And I thank you and I wish you all the very best.